In this short clip, I will present you information about how multilinguals acquire articles and definiteness. I will start by presenting what definite and indefinite articles express and how definiteness is encoded across languages. Then I will present to you how articles are acquired in monolingual and multilingual groups. Finally, I will discuss typical errors in multilingual groups to prepare you about what you can expect, depending on the multilingual groups you teach, as well as possible solutions. Articles are elements that help us express definiteness, that is, whether something is known and familiar to the speaker and the hearer. For example, in English, if someone says, "I saw a bird and a cat sitting by a tree," the bird, cat, and tree are known to the speaker but not to the hearer. This is why the speaker is introducing them to the hearer using the indefinite article. After they have been introduced, they are known to both the speaker and the hearer. This is why the speaker then can say, "The bird flew into the sky and the cat ran away." So the speaker now is using the definite article because they are both known to the hearer. So the definite article is used when someone or something is known to both the speaker and the hearer, and in that way it signals all the information. The example we saw earlier with the bird and cat is called anaphoric because with the definite article we refer back to entities we have introduced before. There is also a different context, the bridging context. Here we introduce an entity. Jane wanted to open a jar, and world knowledge tells us that the jar has lids. Therefore, we don't need to say the jar has a lid before we say she removed the lid. The information that jars have lids is part of our world knowledge. Here we use the definite article because the hearer knows that a jar has a lid from the world knowledge. In contrast to definite articles, indefinite articles are used when an entity is known to the speaker and not the hearer, or when an entity is not known to either of the two. We have again several contexts for the use of indefinite articles. Here I illustrate two of them, the specific and the non-referential. In the specific context, I saw a bird and a cat sitting by a tree. The entities are known to the speaker and not to the hearer. In the non-referential context, the speaker does not refer to a specific entity. "I would like a bag to put my clothes in" does not refer to an entity, a bag, that is known to the speaker or the hearer. How is definiteness expressed across languages? Some languages, like English, Dutch, and Greek, have definite and indefinite articles that are free morphemes, that is, separate words. Some languages, like Turkish, have elements that are attached to other words, that is, they have bound morphemes that express definiteness. In Turkish, the case morpheme expresses definiteness. Other languages, like Russian, use word order to express definiteness. This is not an exhaustive list of languages or means to express definiteness. If we focus on languages that mark definiteness with free morphemes, definite and indefinite articles, in some languages, the same form of definite and indefinite article can be used all the time, like in English. The is used for both singular and plural. The bird, the birds. However, in some other languages, there are different forms of definite and indefinite articles depending on the gender of the noun, the number, if it is the singular or the plural, or the case of the noun phrase. For example, Dutch has two genders, common and neuter, and the definite article has two different forms, de and het in the singular, but only one in the plural. The indefinite form has only one form, en, for both common and neuter genders. The Greek article system is more complex because it has three genders, masculine, feminine, and neuter, two numbers, singular and plural, and there are different forms of the article depending on the case of the noun phrase, nominative, accusative, or genitive. So the learner has to learn not only when to use the definite and the indefinite article, but also which of the different forms to use. And the learner should also be able to identify what each form signals. Here we can see the different forms of the definite article in Greek for masculine nouns in the singular and the plural, in the nominative, genitive, and accusative case to illustrate the complexity of the system. If we now focus on languages that mark definiteness with bound morphemes, like Turkish, nouns in the accusative case in the object position are definite. In this example, we can see that in the first sentence, when the book is known to the speaker but not the hearer, it is used without accusative case, Aisha Kitab. In the next sentence, it is known information to the hearer, so accusative case is used, kitabi. So a bilingual person who is acquiring a language like Turkish and a language like English, Dutch, or Greek has to acquire how definiteness is encoded in the two languages. What do we know about the acquisition of articles in monolingual children? Articles are acquired very early. For example, monolingual English-speaking children produce articles 90% of the time by the age of 3. They are better in the bridging compared to the anaphoric condition, but when they make errors, these are errors of omission. What do we know about the acquisition of articles in bilingual children? Research has compared groups of children whose second language has articles, for example, English, but the first language doesn't have definite articles, for example, Turkish or Russian, to groups of children whose first and second language have articles, for example, English and Spanish. These have shown that at an early stage of development, children with a language combination of the first type omit more articles than children with a language combination of the second type. However, this difference disappeared at a later stage of development. In studies on English that doesn't have gender number of case marking on the articles, two error types have been identified: errors of omission, like in 1, and errors of substitution, like in 2. Here we have an elicitation task where the experimenter says, Mary has a doll and a painting. She played with one of them. Then the experimenter asks, which one? The expected answer is the doll. Children may say doll, which is an omission of the definite article, or a doll, where the child uses the indefinite instead of the definite article. Errors of omission are often found in children who just started to learn a language and whose first language doesn't have articles. Errors of substitution are found in all children at a later stage, and it is independent of whether or not their other language has definite articles. However, it's very interesting to note that some studies have shown that even when children were omitting articles in their speech, they were very sensitive to errors of omission when they heard someone else omitting articles in their speech. This shows that they could process errors of omission when they listen to language, which means that they have started to develop the grammatical rules of the language they were acquiring. This means that if a learner omits articles, this doesn't indicate that they haven't acquired at all articles. They may have started to learn articles, but the acquisition process hasn't been completed yet, and this is why they sometimes make mistakes. This is similar to young children who learn the first language. They also go through a stage in which they comprehend more than they produce, and they make errors in their production. This is a phase all children go through until they acquire the system of articles in the target language. From the classroom perspective, there are 3 ways forward. First, if learners omit articles in their speech, find out what other languages they speak. Does their other language or languages not encode definiteness through articles? If this is the case, explain with examples how the language they are acquiring encodes definiteness and compare it with the other languages they know. Second, if learners make errors of substitution, explain the function of definite and indefinite articles in the language you are teaching. Third, in both cases, after the explanation, use exercises to make students practice definiteness in the languages they are learning. And remember, making errors doesn't necessarily mean that the students haven't learned anything or are not learning. Variable use of articles is part of the learning process in monolingual, bilingual, and multilingual learners. To summarize, in this short clip, I presented what definite and indefinite articles express and how definiteness is encoded across languages, how articles are acquired in monolingual and multilingual groups, and what the typical errors are, and what the possible ways forward to support multilingual learners in their acquisition of definite and indefinite articles in the classroom.